What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is going to be our post Super Bowl 2 round mock draft with no trades, one exception. And so we are going to be kicking off the true offseason with a bang. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. We just breached 10K, so we're on the way to 15, if not 20. It is going to be great. We are going to be continuing the show from now until the future, so you might as well get on the hype train early because you'll get on it eventually. But whenever you do, feel free to let me know. I would love to say hello. Again, comments down below. Feel free to call me out. Don't be a dick about it. I want to make good content for you and good content for everybody. So if I slip up, it is our responsibility to make sure that we correct it. So you are a big part of the show just as much as I am. We are sponsored by two big sponsors of the show, UnderDog Fantasy, which is a reason why I need to do more videos, but also Olipop, yes, my favorite drink brand of all time. They've been there for the past 3 years, so they're going to be continuing to be a big part of the future as well. Let's get into this. Starting this week is actually a massive news series I'm going to be bringing out. It is going to be the ultimate draft guide per team. Essentially, it's a full off season, but people tend to gravitate more towards ultimate draft guides than the title off season. So it's going to be basically breaking down everything that a team should be doing in the offseason, including a 7-round mock draft. So stay tuned for that. Very excited. It is a lot of work, but you know what? It is extremely fun. We got all 22 tape studies coming in the next week. Told y'all it was coming. So let's get right into this. Chicago Bears have the #1 overall selection. Bottom line, it's going to be a Caleb Williams selection. We're just going to figure out who the hell to trade to. This is a live mock draft as well. The easy selection would be to go after the Falcons. Falcons just appear to be right outside of the target range. Don't really feel like a team that is too desperate to spend a lot of draft capital to move up. But at the same time, they need an upgrade. So it's a way you can do it for the cheap. Same thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They've said that they've been very much in the market for a quarterback. That appears to be the main team I'd be concerned with, trying to get one of these quarterbacks. I could see Washington, if they end up not liking any of the quarterbacks, potentially moving back and then ending up bringing Justin Fields on, getting offensive linemen. That would be a wild scenario, but one that I think is not out of the question. But for today's video, I'm going to just go back at like last week. We just switch it up all the time, but I'm going to be going with the safe bet, which is the Falcons. I do say that the Patriots are a dark horse team for this selection or for this trade, but I do think the Falcons are just that perfect spot. I will only trade pick 43. And those of y'all who say he's not worth a second, or Justin's not worth a second round pick, like, dude, get your head out of the gutter. Like, maybe in your opinion, he's not worth it. But the fact is, he will most likely be going for a minimum of a second round pick. Maybe it's a conditional third that might become a second, that might become a first. I don't know. Because the NFL is getting a little bit more tactile in terms of how they end up dishing out these trades. But if you were looking at Sam Darnold, we're looking at, Josh Rosen. Like, these guys are getting traded for very noticeable draft capital for significantly less production and upside. Hate to say it, but this is going to be the trade. The Falcons end up getting Justin. Maybe it's a little bit more, maybe it's a little bit less, but today it is just that. Caleb Williams is a selection for the Bears. 5 years of a very good contract on an elite level quarterback. Merrill Hodge talking about him like he's nothing special. Now, I don't have Caleb Williams graded in like the 90s or anything. Like, he's not the best quarterback. Well, he's the best quarterback I've ever graded, but I also haven't been having an official grading scale for a very long time. And my grading scale continues to evolve as I figure out what makes a quarterback tick more and more and more. So, Caleb Williams, he's a phenomenal prospect. He's the best quarterback I've ever graded. I don't know how he'd add up to a Joe Burrow because I really liked Joe Burrow. But, Caleb Williams has unbelievable playmaking ability, and we're seeing that maybe consistency is not always the end-all, be-all, where Mahomes can struggle for a half and then just come out and really play big in the big moments. He didn't exactly do that every single week at Texas Tech. Caleb Williams didn't do it every single week at USC, but you see how if he has the right situation, the right coaching, as we say with every prospect, and I think that's true of anybody, even people not in sports, if you have a shitty boss, and you're at a poor place where you don't belong, you're not going to perform as well as if you're with a really good, encouraging boss who knows how to use you properly. Hate to say it. I think we all can kind of relate to that, but Caleb Williams is going to be a great quarterback. I have a very, very strong belief in it. Pick number 2 for the Washington Commanders. Mobile quarterback is the name of the game when you have Cliff Kingsbury running the offense. Eric Bieniemy no longer going to be there. Now, I do think that Sam Howell has still potential to really be a valuable asset to the Commanders. Like, it just feels like this is going to be a quarterback move. And I'm going to change up what I normally do. I normally go Jaden because he's my QB2. He has the mobility. He fits very well. But I want to test out what happens if I go Drake May here. And it just feels like the NFL is tracking more towards Drake May, especially if we're talking about J.J. McCarthy being a potential top 15, top 10 selection. The tools appear to be more of the asset rather than the actual impact on the game. So Drake May, when you see the best potential outcome, Drake May has a little bit more to the tank than Jaden does. Jaden has a little bit more explosiveness, but is more of the pure processing over the middle. That's the issue. Drake needs to be a bit more consistent. That's his issue, is the consistency. Jaden, there is a massive gap over the middle in terms of progressions because he relies a lot on his legs. Again, Jaden's my QB too, but I think Drake May will be looked at a little bit more positively. Drake May does come from a different North Carolina system. So saying North Carolina doesn't really add up because Drake May, if I'm not mistaken, actually tried to transfer out of North Carolina because he's like, I'm not going to the same system that Sam Howell did after that first year. So I think that there's still big gaps in this game, but he is my solidified QB3, so this is not out of the question. Drake May provides different upsides as well as different downsides to Sam Howell. I think Sam Howell should be dealt for a day 2 pick, like maybe a 3rd round pick, because he has shown the ability to be a starter, and he does still have 3 years left on his contract. He's still a great player. Or is it 2 years? I think it's 2 years left. So he has 2 years left on a very cheap contract. Could end up garnering maybe a 4th round pick or maybe a late 3rd. But Drake May is going to be that choice there because I'm going to try to make it a little bit more of exactly what I think could happen. At pick 3 for the New England Patriots, I believe if Drake May's not there, Jaden Daniels is not going to be their type of quarterback. I just, for some reason, don't see Jaden Daniels being a New England Patriot. It's more of a gut feeling than pure analysis. I will concede that. And I think that they actually end up targeting Marvin Harrison Jr. And personally, I think this would be the right decision, even though Jaden's my QB too. And you're essentially playing with, the 25 to 32nd or 25th to 32nd best quarterback in the NFL. The one thing this team has never really gotten right is drafting a receiver early. At least in the past decade, the receiving core has been mediocre at best, and acquisitions have been what really adds some fuel to the fire, or some guys who just randomly snipe late. Get the guy who's almost a guaranteed hit. Marvin Harrison Jr. at 6'4", 215. He's just super dynamic. I saw some figure that says 195. If that's the case, that's not good. But for the time being, he has that pure X prototype build. Maybe he's around 210. Maybe he's a little bit thinner at 205, but he is super dynamic, extremely smart, great bloodlines. This guy could be a true difference maker. You haven't been able to have the ability to get really good receiver talent like earlier on. So at least up here, the risk is so minimal. Just take the risk on the quarterback position, which you have hit on past round 1 multiple times before. Even though, again, you're in the 25 to 32nd range, 25 to 32 range, you still have a chance of getting a legit starting quarterback, not at pick 3. At pick 4 for the Arizona Cardinals, Malik Neighbors is a very intriguing option. Again, there was only one trade in this, and that is going to be that Justin Fields trade. So we're not trading out of this spot. That is for later this week. But Joe Alt, to me, feels like a move that they would totally be down for. Joe Alt, Talise Fuaga, it depends on their future ideology or their future plan for their right tackle currently, but drafted at number 6 overall last year, their left tackle, Paris Johnson. If Paris Johnson is bound to be that left tackle, then maybe they would trade back, get Talise Fuaga, and then go from there. But at the same time, Paris Johnson was not a liability this year. DJ Humphries is going to be out for a noticeable while. He's either going to be cut by the time he's back or else be in that rotation. Malik Neighbors is a very intriguing option because this team they do need quite a bit of firepower added to them, but this draft also has some good dudes down the board. I'm going to go Joe Alt here to change things up a little bit because I have Joe Alt usually slipping a bit, or slipping, as in gets to 7 overall, but he never really goes this high anymore. I want to be able to take a good shot on him there. At pick 5 for the Los Angeles Chargers, Brock Bowers to me is just the most hardball thing you can do. If teams have Marvin Harrison Jr. as wide receiver 2 to Malik Neighbors, like some of them do, I think that it's almost impossible for him to go any lower than 5 or 6. And that's the big issue. I do think Harbaugh is going to prioritize that run game. I think a dark horse candidate for this would be actually Talise Fuaga. He is obviously my tackle number 1 or tackle number 2. I mean, they're essentially tied. It's right tackle number 1, left tackle number 1. You don't need to have one tackle being better than the other. He's a natural right tackle to replace a right tackle. I do think that this class is known to have good tackles in it. It's a very solid class. I'll give it that. But at the same time, I want to test out a theory where you could see the tackles go more early and more often than expected. So Harbaugh is a very much a ground and pound type of guy. I do think that probably will be one of these weapons, but we also have to test out other theories. That's the fun part of this show, is that I make a mock draft every week, and I love to test out new theories that at least have validity to them. This team's looking for a right tackle replacement. This team loves to run the ball, and this is the best run blocker in the class. So Talise Fuaga, you guys can go take a quick peek at that. Talise Fuaga will be that surprise selection there at 5. I do think there's good weapons and tight ends. Well, not tight ends, but you can always grab tight ends in free agency down the board. Again, I do have Brock Bowers as my number 2 player in the class. I think he's phenomenal, but positional value also might put that out of range. At pick 6 for the New York Giants, this is the conundrum I wanted. Malik Neighbors or Jaden Daniels. So this team is capped by lacking firepower. Pretty understandable, right? But it's also capped by a limited quarterback in Daniel Jones. I'm going to go after Jaden Daniels. I love Malik Neighbors with all my heart. I do. He's a great player. Honestly, I'm probably going to push him up my board even more. I put him over Jaden Daniels on my board. But when you evaluate a team, you have to look at the pick that would give the biggest wins above replacement for the franchise, the biggest return on investment, and is an explosive weapon that super dynamic, will be a great weapon. Is that going to provide a big return on investment? Absolutely. So this pick is not one that is easy to make. But am I going to trust that Malik Neighbors is going to be able to be his true self with Daniel Jones? I don't think so. I trust Jaden Daniels to be his true and best self under Brian Daboll with the weapons that they have, plus maybe another one. I'm going to trust that the team is best off with the Jaden Daniels. So at pick number 7 for the Tennessee Titans, it's Olu Fashanu or Malik Neighbors. Impossible to choose between the two because both provide a very massive boost to a very big need. And I've always gone offensive line for the Tennessee Titans. I think I still need to. This team's not as desperate for a receiver as it is for a true left tackle. Andre Dillard's absolute butt cheeks is what it is. So I'm going to go Olu Fashanu. This idea that he's going to slip because he had a not incredible year 2 when the whole entire franchise honestly didn't. The whole entire team didn't do too well is a little bit beyond me. I thought he did a phenomenal job this year. I thought that we saw legitimate progression, but people just thought of him as somebody who was better than he was. Like people thought Olu was like the number 1 player in the class, and it's like, no. I mean, he was my tackle number 4, left tackle number 2. Okay, pipe down, everybody. And right now he's my left tackle 2, tackle number 3. It's not that crazy. It's really not. At pick 8 for the Atlanta Falcons, we got Justin Fields. Let's get him his super weapon, Malik Neighbors. Don't need to overthink that too much. But Malik Neighbors is an incredible prospect. He should have probably went at number 5. Maybe he could have went even at number 4. But I wanted to test out the theory. What if the tackles go early? because tackles make a big difference. They really do. I mean, hell, even Colton McKivitz ended up like holding up pretty damn well during the Super Bowl, and like allowing your quarterback to have that time allows even receivers like Jawan Jennings to have almost a Super Bowl MVP impact. Do with that as you will. But at pick number 9 for the Chicago Bears, I think Rome Odunze is going to be their selection. You know, they're going to be trying to fix up that offense in any way, shape, or form possible. When evaluating the Bears' needs, wide receiver is a big one. It really is a big one. I think the Bears also really do need to target an edge rusher. Like an edge 2, it's a big position to go after. And I wouldn't shame them for doing so. At pick 43, I trust there to be a solid edge rusher there, especially with the emergence of, Darius Robinson. Like, I do believe that you're going to be in a good position there at 43. And yes, center's a massive gaping hole as well. There are some good centers out there in free agency. I trust that the wide receiver market is, if you're wanting to spend this type of draft capital, if it's Rome or else take an edge rusher here, save the money on an edge rusher, and go after Calvin Ridley, I'm going to start teetering on that line because I personally think Calvin Ridley is worth approximately the value of Rome Odunze. But Rome Odunze brings a true wide receiver 1 profile to a team that already has a wide receiver 1, and that's never a bad thing. I think this is the most realistic pick for the Bears. Let's put it that way. And also, Rome Odunze on a thumbnail just looks... They have a beautiful Bears edit of him that I've already used. It is gorgeous. At pick 10, though, for the New York Jets, this is an interesting scenario where we have taken a lot of the tackles early and the wide receivers. So I think tight end, dark horse position to go after. Brock Bowers could actually essentially act as a tackle. Wide receiver-wise, there ain't nothing here. But tackle-wise, we could say I would be able to digest a J.C. Latham or a Amarius Mims pick at pick 10. Amarius came out for a reason. I don't know why. I thought he should have been a top 3 to 5 player in 2025. It's a poor quarterback class with some good DBs and honestly not that many really good offensive linemen. I don't understand why, even with years of eligibility left, he decides to come out now unless somebody told him, you're pretty much a lock for the top 10 to 15. Like, he has to do that. He came off an injury-riddled year. He didn't even get to play most of the year. And he hasn't really had much time to start. But this dude, when he does start, he kicks ass. 6'7", 340. I'm going to trust him to be more reliably healthy because, again, it's not like he's been an injury bug for his whole career. I mean, the dude just didn't start last year. They had Warren McClendon? So shout out, I believe he's on the Rams, so shout out to the Rams for that one. But Amarius Mims is going to be the selection here. 6'7", 340. Again, potential to be a top 5 player when healthy and starting a full year. So at least you're getting that value right there with some good youth. Pick number 11 for the Minnesota Vikings, a team that probably will be looking to move up for a quarterback. I think that Kirk Cousins could be returning to this team. I know y'all don't really want to pay him, but this is where I think the rumors of J.J. McCarthy being a top 10 selection are starting to brew, is the Vikings might actually want to bring him on the roster. I can't digest that yet. I can't. It's just, I don't have it in me. I can't do it. So I'm going to go after an edge rusher here. And I think Dallas Turner, especially after losing your top 3 in Wonum, Davenport, as well as, of course, the biggest one, Daniil Hunter, it's the right thing to do. He's regarded as the best edge rusher in the class. 242, really on the lower side, but this dude could end up still adding plenty of size to his frame. He is an unbelievable athlete. He's going to test like a monster. He plays like a monster. So there you go. And he's a monster. So I don't really need to say much more than that. At pick 12 for the Denver Broncos, Brock Bowers is a sneaky one where they could just say, let's go BPA. It's another team where I could see J.J. McCarthy going in the real draft. I like to blend realism with my own picks, like more like 80, or I would say 50-50, like pure realism with my picks, because of course my picks also tend to line up. I mean, good players are usually met with similar enthusiasm. So, again, I like to make sure I put my own twist on a realistic mock draft, but J.J. McCarthy very well might be going in this range. And that's what scares the living hell out of me, to be fair. But the Denver Broncos are also a team that are looking to add to that edge core with Jared Verse, Leatu Latu, for example. They're also looking to add to that corner core, Terry and Arnold, Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quinyon Mitchell. Like, this team is looking to arm up. So I'm going to go Terry and Arnold because I do think that the value of corner is unbelievable. Teams are always looking to add at the corner position, and teams who have elite corner duos tend to have a lot more success when the rest of the team starts building up than a team that's built up and needs to find that second corner. Corners are just so they're such a massive asset in the modern NFL. And with Terry and Arnold being so flexible and so versatile, it's worth it. It is. At pick 13 for the Vegas Raiders, Brock Bowers is so ridiculous. Again, he's my number 2 player. It's not like I'm trying to throw shade here, but he's just ridiculously talented. But with the Raiders sitting here at pick 13, I do think, again, I'm trying my best not to take a QB with JJ McCarthy in these spots because I don't think he deserves to be a top 32 guy. I don't know who has the job security to last through a contract or through a couple years of developing JJ McCarthy. Essentially, I believe the Vikings might be the team to take him because they've seen firsthand what happens with Jordan Love. You give him time, you give him good expertise, they ended up developing. But I do think the Raiders could be a dark horse team for an offensive tackle. The problem is, I don't know if you want to go back to Bama for a right tackle in the first round. Now, I know it's not, you don't scout the helmet. I know he's a different player, but you do need to factor in the fact that, it's a similar prospect coming from a similar position. I think that Latham is significantly better. I wasn't even a fan of Leatherwood, but, JC Latham is a far superior product. I do think this team ends up targeting a different type of position, though. And it could be Kool-Aid McKinstry. It could be one of those corners. It could be one of these defensive interiors. But this class does have some good D interiors. I am actually going to end up opting for one of these corners, though. And Quinyon Mitchell feels like one of those picks that the Raiders could be trying to reach a little bit on. But at the same time, when you do look at Antonio Pierce, I think he loves the intellect and just the natural processing that a player who's as smart and cerebral as Nate Wiggins brings to the table. Great player overall, unbelievable talent. I just love a player that knows how to process the game. At pick 14 for the New Orleans Saints, it's Brock Bowers or Jared Verse. Jared Verse really could be the contingency plan that wraps everything up in a bow. With Cam Jordan getting older. JC Latham, they do need a tackle, but at the same time, I got to change things up as well. Kubiak did get brought on the roster or into the organization. I'm so sorry, Colts fans. This is going to literally gut you. And I love y'all with all my heart. Kubiak, I know a lot of my Saints fans have been saying this. Kubiak makes Brock Bowers a far more likely suggestion or selection than what it was before. Sorry to the Colts fans, because again, it's like stealing candy from a baby. Like you feel awful, like a genuine pain after doing it. But Brock Bowers will then go to New Orleans. At pick number 15 for the Colts, Cooper DeJean is somebody who I love. I still think that with that leg break, he will end up going a little bit later than expected. A player like Jared Verse shouldn't be on the board at the moment. I do think that's a dark horse position to target. I do know that y'all would love Brian Thomas on this team. He's a very good complement to everything that you do have, especially bring Michael Pittman Jr. back. I just think it's a bit early. Keon Coleman is a really fun one. It's a great trade back option, but we have to stay put. And what's going to be the best return on investment if you stay put is to get an alpha edge rusher, because I don't know how many more will be like Jared Verse. Jared Verse is unbelievably talented, and he is a true edge one on a team. I know that you had 4 guys with 7+ sacks. I don't know how replicable that is. The true fact is you don't have any true alpha dogs on your edge core. And Jared Verse is an alpha. So you're going to be getting a true leader of that defense, especially since DeForest Buckner might be coming up towards the end of his contract very, very soon. So you need to have somebody who could be the identity and the captain of that defense. Pick 16 for the Seattle Seahawks. Honestly, I would have taken Jared Verse if he were at this selection. But I think defensive interior is a position that's a dark horse need for this team. I also believe that with the nagging leg injuries of Abraham Lucas, J.C. Latham is a dark horse candidate for this pick. Again, this team focuses a lot on the run game. J.C. Latham's going to be a great player in the short run at the run. And he's going to develop over the long run to add in that pass blocking element. It does feel like it might be the move they go. And he could kick into guard for the short run if they do end up needing him there. I think that at 360 pounds, it's a little bit weird to kick him into guard, but it's not impossible. I do think that one of the positions I love is Jackson Powers-Johnson, this team. I don't know. I've been taking him, but I just don't know if the NFL will be open to taking a center/guard prospect there at 16. J.C. Latham is my dark horse pick, though. It is my dark horse, and I might want to deploy it. But instead, I'm actually going to go Byron Murphy II. Over 300 pounds at 310. He's unbelievably athletic. 20 years old. Very high upside right there. You have a lot of time to grow and mentor him. He's a great player that you just need to unleash. And if you bring back Leonard Williams, that's the type of mentor that you really want. But Byron Murphy brings that pass rushing upside to where even though the edge rushing group is a little bit lacking, I love Boye Mafe. I'm not trying to throw shade at him. But the overall core, you got Derek Hall in there as well, but edge rushing crews are more than two guys deep. Byron Murphy adds that extra element to where you don't need to focus primarily on the outside to get pressure. You get that interior pressure as well. The Jaguars, I think this is just a home run hit for them. Quinion Mitchell is just everything Balky asked for. Physical, fluid, aggressive, and killer mentality. I prefer Kool-Aid McKinstry because I think Kool-Aid McKinstry is better on a down-to-down basis because he has more experience in non-off coverage systems. And I also think that when he gets it turned on, there's nobody that is really better than Kool-Aid. But Quinion Mitchell will go before him because there's questions about Kool-Aid's motor versus Quinion answered a lot of questions there at the Senior Bowl. I pick 18 for the Cincinnati Bengals. J.C. Latham is just the obvious choice if he is here. I would have to say Jerzon Newton might be a move that they really do enjoy and they want to go after because, DJ Reader's been a big asset for them. Another dark horse position for the Bengals. It is wide receiver. Keon Coleman, I still think could be a top 20 selection if T. Higgins walks, which I think they should tag and trade T. Like you could get a potential first out of him for that. Looking at a team that could use him, I'm not going to lie. I think pick 23 could end up being a pick that's traded for T in a tag and trade. Like, I would not say the Texans would be out of the realm for a T. Higgins trade because that'd be a massive plus and it's just adding more fuel to the fire. Anyways, I'm going to go J.C. Latham. This team needs to continue protecting Joe, especially after injury, even though that injury wasn't necessarily due to Jonah Williams. It was, more of a freak finger accident. But it sucked to see. It really did. At pick 19 for the Los Angeles Rams, Leatu Latu feels like the right choice at this point. There's a billion different routes that you can go, but Latu is the perfect complement for having Byron Young there. And Byron Young's a great player. You want someone who's around that 260 frame, and Leatu Latu does have that. Short arms, a little bit concerning. Obviously, the injury history, a little bit concerning, but the play, not so much. So, great player overall. Leatu Latu stays in Los Angeles. Pittsburgh Steelers. I do think quarterback could be on their radar here at pick 20, but I think Kool-Aid McKinstry makes a little too much sense. You could also go Jackson Powers-Johnson, though. I hate doing this to my Dolphins fans as well. I'm going to do this, though. We're going to go Jackson Powers-Johnson. He does feel like a Pittsburgh Steeler. He will end up being that alpha mentality that Pouncey used to be. So we're going to get that Pouncey vibe back. So speaking of another team that actually had a Pouncey and a Pouncey at center too, we have the Dolphins. And Dolphins, I do think that dark horse position for your pick here is actually a nose and Tavondre Sweat. You're not going to really find anybody else in this class that really brings that emphasis, especially on the interior. So I might test it out. We might do that. So he's a great player as well. I'm not doing this just because he's a big dude. He's 354 pounds, for Christ's sakes. Like, he is an absolute monster, and he moves very well. Maybe not in all directions, but he pushes the pocket. That is something that will be a very, very big plus. And, I know that the Ravens DB coach, pretty sure that he's brought onto y'all's roster or y'all's organization as well. He loves his big dudes, but he also loves the ones who can be gap penetrators, but there's a good balance between them. This is essentially going to be your Travis Jones, and that is a big, big, big plus because I love Travis Jones. Devondre Sweat's going to be that weird pick. I'm going to throw it in there because something always blindsides us, and this will be the pick in this draft that really does so. At pick 22 for the Philadelphia Eagles, edge rusher would have been the choice that I would have made. I mean, Leatu Latu makes sense. There's a Hassan Reddick trade being theorized right now. He's been able to seek a trade, and that does show some progression. Vic Fangio, he's going to be a little bit more. I think Darius Robinson's very much up to y'all's speed. If he's there at 50, y'all are going to be taking him. This dude's an absolute monster. He could end up being the first-round selection. I'm not going to do that because I would have to trade back in order to make that palatable. Instead, I'm going to go after Kool-Aid McKinstry here out of Alabama. Just a really rock-solid corner that you can trust to go toe-to-toe versus CeeDee Lamb. And I think that's going to be what you're really looking for, is just someone who's reliably consistent in the big moments versus the big players. And Kool-Aid takes reps off. That's his only issue. But I think when it comes down to when it truly matters, he's one who I trust to really be in the game. So that's why he is still, he's at number 18 on my board, even though he has those poor reps. He really does know what he's doing. At pick 23 for the Houston Texans, I'm changing up my strategy. I normally like to go for a big-ass D tackle to stuff the middle. But that's not the system, and y'all have been telling me that. And I've been a little bit arrogant, but the more I listen, the more I understand. And that's why I need y'all to keep me accountable. Hold me accountable. We're going Jer'Zhan Newton. My dream pick for them is Byron Murphy because he has an extra 10 pounds on him. But Jer'Zhan Newton's an elite block shedder who also plays a run very well. One of those cerebral players who deserves more respect than I think he gets at this moment. Overall, it's a great selection for a team that is really looking to add some fuel to the fire. At pick 24 for the Dallas Cowboys, dark horse pick, Brian Thomas. Other picks that I could see, Jordan Morgan, potential left tackle, could kick to the inside. I think Tyler Guyton is a very smart move for this team to develop for a year. He needs 1 year to develop. So give it to him. He needs to also transition from right to left tackle. But he is the final tackle that I truly feel comfortable with starting at tackle. I don't think any of these other tackles in this class have that genuine starting potential year one or year 1.5. Jordan Morgan, to me, has played himself into that guard role unless he gets mentored, but he still has really short arms. I really think you're a guard. Trey Fautanu, I've always thought of him as a guard. Karan could develop into one, but he's not going to even be there for the Cowboys. It really is Tyler Guyton at this point, and Karan's just way too early. If you could trade back multiple times, maybe you can get Karan, and that'll be okay. But then, the next guy is Christian Jones. It's a massive drop-off, and I don't think people are talking about it enough. Because the offensive line class is great, but a lot of the tackles are going to be projected as guards. Tyler Guyton, not so much. So take the Sooner, who's just going to be an hour north, and end up kicking him to left tackle, and just see what happens from there. At pick 25 for the Green Bay Packers. Cooper DeJean's here. It's a smart position to target. Ennis Rakestraw, very smart to go after as well. He's a great player, but Cooper DeJean, I made enough curveballs in this one to where I feel comfortable going back to the good old reliable. Pick 26 for the Buccaneers. I think that the Buccaneers do need to target interior offensive line. They need to target edge rusher, and those are the primary two. But you can really go anywhere. The world's their oyster. I do love the idea, and I know y'all hate it. Jordan Morgan or Fautanu, or Fautano, I don't know. I can't trust Broshmo to pronounce things properly, but these two players right here, Morgan and Troy, these guys I would really trust on the Buccaneers because also they can fill in at tackle if need be. But you have just guys who are willing to put their lives on the line, so to speak, for their quarterback and just really put the pedal to the metal. I had Troy significantly above Jordan Morgan. I think he's a better player just through and through. And that's a guy who I would end up getting for the Buccaneers. So I actually really like that because I think he'll be an elite level guard who can also fill in at tackle in case of injury And we see a lot of injuries happen in the NFL. This is going to be, again, one of those, curveball selections. But Troy Fautanu, guard / tackle out of Washington, will be the choice. At pick 27 for the Cardinals, another spot where Fautanu would be a pretty good choice, but we ended up going after a tackle in Joe Alt earlier in round 1. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a good choice here, but this team needs a corner pretty dang desperately, and it really does drop off after Ennis Rakestraw Jr. He had a core surgery. That's why he is here in the first place, but he's my number 2 corner in the class. He can be on the inside or the out. Don't try to shame Ennis Rakestraw, because this is not the comment section that is too receptive to Ennis Rakestraw hate, because he is an absolute freak show. He ended up handling himself very well versus even Ladd McConkey. That's pretty damn tough to do. At pick number 28 for the Buffalo Bills, it's Brian Thomas if he's here, and I am not going to even consider other options. Even if you see Cooper DeJean here, I'm still selecting Brian Thomas for this team. It disarms all the competitors, because this is like literally the dream selection for all the competitors. So take with that as you will. At pick 29 for the Detroit Lions, looking at the options available, I do know that pretty much both of those guard spots are open. Jordan Morgan would not be a bad choice. It's a sneaky one, but I do think it's a good position to go. Interior offensive line, again, just talked about Jordan Morgan here, but you could see Christian Haynes, Cooper Beebe. I'd wait till round 2, but it's still out there. Edge rusher, kind of a big position to go after. I really like Chop Robinson. I think this team has enough patience to allow a player like Chop Robinson, who is a little bit on the lighter side, a little bit more on the developmental side. I still think that this is the team that's best for Chop. He's probably going to be the position I go. I don't have any corners here that I trust. I've already taken 5 of them, right? Like, you got Kalen King down the line. Andrew Phillips is good. Cam Hard, Dwight McLaughlin. Like, the depth at corner is actually quite solid, but I just don't like it on round 2 as much as maybe some other people do. Braylon Trice would be a great choice, but I just don't really want a 270-pound player playing across from a 270-pound player. It just doesn't feel like the rush position is properly filled in that particular spot. So I'm actually going to go Chop, because I think he needs a little bit more time to develop, and I think this is the exact team to be willing to take the best shot on the best upside. And that's going to be Chop Robinson. At pick 30 for the Baltimore Ravens, wide receiver is always the way I go for this team. It is the smartest decision through and through, the smartest choice you can make. And Troy Franklin is the exact definition of the receiver that you want on this team, the receiver that you don't want to face when you're facing Kansas City. For the San Francisco 49ers, brutal way to end. I mean, again, it's another Shanahan Super Bowl that ended up closing out the way that you didn't really want it to. It's just, I love the Niners. Honestly, Colton McKivitz held up well. And I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this. Colton McKivitz played well enough to save his job. Like, that's the way I'm going to go about it. It's just, I don't believe in him. Like, does that make sense? Like, I don't believe in him. So, like, Karan Amajaje is a guy who I love. Kingsley Suamataia is a guy that I love for this team. Jordan Morgan is a guy who I think would do really well. I think that corner would be the position to go. There's just not a great option here specifically for the 49ers. If you end up losing out on Chase Young, Braylon Trice is not a bad choice to bring back. Or not to bring back, to bring in. You could end up, bringing in an A.D. Mitchell here, because if you lose Jawan Jennings, not a bad consolation prize. But there's just not really many guys that I think would be a great fit for San Fran here, except for just best player available. So I will go offensive line, but I think I want to get I think this is a team to take a developmental player. We're going to throw a massive curveball here. We're going Karan Amajaje, the true developmental left tackle out of Yale. They're going to pull a Philadelphia Eagles and say, screw it. You know what? We don't have that many issues. We don't have that many holes. This guy could actually end up being a superstar tackle. He's ranked 42 as a tackle who tore his quad coming from Yale. Think about that for a second. Before you try to criticize it, think about it for a second. This guy is an absolute freak show. I'm not sure if he's going to be testing at the combine, but he's going to be ready by week 1. So you can put him in at tackle if Colton starts slipping up, because we all know Colton's not the most consistent guy, but I think he saved his job for the short run, which allows the Niners to make the best move for the long run. Again, there's no trades in this. Otherwise, I'd trade my ass out of there ASAP. The Chiefs are sitting here at pick 32. Congratulations on another Super Bowl. The way that Andy Reid essentially did missionary with Chris Jones, I doubt that he is going to be gone, but I still think that it is a good position to at least think about targeting. Wide receiver and tight end going to be the ones that I go after the most, though. Jatavian Sanders, not a first-round pick. Keon Coleman's a unique prospect that I just don't think will be well received if, no pun intended, as a receiver. I just don't think it'll be the guy that the Chiefs will end up going after. So I will go A.D. Mitchell. I'm just trying to replace MVS. A.D. Mitchell actually would be a really damn good option because he's a solid deep threat as well. Pick 33 for the Carolina Panthers. Again, this is 2 rounds in 1 video, so we better get cooking through this. But this team needs wide receiver help. They need edge help too, to be fair. But, with the potential of Brian Burns getting tagged and traded, I mean, that's the smartest thing you can do if you don't end up retaining Brian Burns, because I love Brian Burns, is to go after another edge rusher here. But we're going to go back to the wide receiver route. We're going to go Keon Coleman. Don't overthink it. Get your 6'4", 215 weapon. Just don't overcomplicate things. For the Patriots, you got Marvin Harrison Jr. round 1. Tackles are still available here, but I also trust this team to find some pretty damn good talent down the board. We will go Bo Nix, because I think Bo, with his track record of targeting Troy Franklin, knows how to actually use a star weapon. And I think Bo to MHJ is actually the best combination you can make. Honestly, I would trade up with the Niners right here. This would actually be a very beneficial trade for both sides, just so the Patriots could end up targeting Bo Nix getting that 5th-year contract. Pick 35 for the Cardinals. We've gone corner with Ennis Rakestraw, as well as tackle with Joe Alt. So wide receiver wise, we are a little bit thin here. Again, free agency does exist. Don't force a need that isn't fully there. I do think that you could try to target a Braylon Trice at this point. The value is proper. You got your corner. You could go defensive interior, though, with Chris Jenkins. And I love Chris Jenkins. And he has the versatility to play almost a Braylon Trice position. Let's put some respect on Chris Jenkins' name. We'll do it. Chris Jenkins out of Michigan. Get that defensive interior assistance. At pick 36 for the Washington Commanders. Edge rusher, tackle, those are the positions to go after. They went after Drake May, again, to just kind of throw a crazy curveball in my own mock drafts. I do know I'm going to get an edge rusher at that next position. So looking at the tackles available, this is a spot where we could end up still going Jordan Morgan. Let's go Jordan Morgan. He might have short arms and play himself into a guard, but we actually do have a need at both spots. It's a good position to go. Kingsley Suamataia also could potentially play himself into being a guard. Jordan Morgan was a little bit more consistent this year. Therefore, he gets the nod. At pick 37 for the Chargers, who went after Talise Fuaga in round number 1. I know I'm definitely pissing off some people with that pick. I already know. But look at the weapons available. Ladd McConkey is almost like a Roman Wilson, so to speak. Good separator, is what it is. Defensive line, I could see Chris Jenkins being a dark horse pick for the Chargers. Edge rusher, they could end up bringing on Josh Uche. I think Josh Uche in free agency is going to almost be a guaranteed send to the Chargers. It just feels like the right thing to do. Corner-wise, I could totally see Mikey Senior still also being a good send to this team. I mean, again, you're putting him back with Minter. And then Junior Colson, there's some really, really good picks. With Khalil Mack leaving, I know you have Tuli Tuipulotu there, but there's also the potential chance of a cap casualty with Joey Bosa. Braylon Trice, who, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they? I thought they played. No, they didn't play Michigan. Did they play Michigan? Why am I tripping? Yeah, they did. I'm so stupid. They did. I think they literally did the championship game. You got to see Braylon Trice firsthand, who Braylon Trice didn't have the best game on planet Earth, but he still ended up being a big focal point of what they defended against. This will be your Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa replacement. I'm going to, again, put a new element to the table, which is building through the trenches, which is exactly what Harbaugh likes to do. Pick number 38 for the Tennessee Titans. Wide receiver, good position to go. We've already went after Olu Fashanu. Cornerbacks, again, I'm not over the moon about them. I'm still going to try to be very optimistic about TJ. He's going to get a re-eval because my first eval was not good. Not good at all. Still got J.J. McCarthy also on the board. I don't think that J.J. McCarthy would have been the move for the Patriots, but because I think they need a day one guy. I will go after a wide receiver for this team. Jalen Polk, Xavier Legette, like those just seem the probable options. Ladd McConkey is phenomenal. Great player. Love him to death. Actually, this could be an organization that says both of our tackles are crap and we weren't expecting Kingsley Suamataia to be available. Let's just take the dude who's had an actual experience at right tackle. So we're getting both a left tackle and a right tackle there in the first 2 rounds, which is not crazy. Teams have done that plenty of times in the past, like where they do just say, screw it, we're going to throw anything at the wall and see what sticks in terms of tackles, because this team should build an identity through winning through the trenches, because you have Simmons on the other side, and you can have Suamataia as well as Olufashanu on this side with Peter Skoronski. At pick 39 for the New York Giants, Suamataia might have been my choice. Got Jaden Daniels in round number 1. I think Jalen Polk's a dark horse pick here. I keep saying that. That's my phrase of the day. I already know it. But Jalen Polk would be a really good selection for Jaden Daniels. But looking at other options that could be replicable to the talent level, Xavier Legette would be really fun. I've never taken Xavier Legette to the New York Giants. And at 6'1", 220, it does give you something that you didn't have before. Of course, you could end up trying to get some extra edge rush help here with Darius Robinson, but this team needs to get a true wide receiver 1. Xavier Legette could do that. He had a pretty mediocre Senior Bowl week, but that's not always the end-all, be-all. At pick 40 for Washington, we've already gone after our tackle in Jordan Morgan. I think that this would be a good opportunity to look at one of those edge rushers. I love Darius Robinson. Chris Braswell feels like a guy who might go before him, but at 286, it also provides so much flexibility in the role that he can play. He can drop another 6 pounds and then be even more flexible as an edge rusher, or he can, remain himself and just go everywhere. I think that's going to be a very valuable asset. So Darius Robinson will be the choice. At pick 41 for the Green Bay Packers, we still actually have J.J. McCarthy on the board. Could have taken him. Actually, no, I could not have taken him there for the Giants because we took Jaden Daniels in the first round. But the Green Bay Packers, we went after Cooper DeJean. Not many more positions this team actually needs. You could develop a tackle. Actually, Graham Barton fits exactly what this team is looking for. You could put him anywhere on the offensive line. And it does feel like a Packers pick. If he is here, they do love to take those tackle/center prospects, i.e. Zach Tom. And I think they'd be very smart for doing it. That versatility should not go unappreciated, whatever the hell that phrase is. But Graham Barton's going to be a great choice there for Green Bay. You can never go wrong with going offensive line, so we won't be doing that there. Minnesota Vikings, I talked about it earlier. J.J. McCarthy feels like the target for the Vikings, and it's going to be the guy that they get. So they end up getting 2 actually relatively smaller prospects, 2 in J.J. McCarthy and Dallas Turner at 242 and 202 respectively. But J.J. McCarthy, tons of tools. I'm not fully sold. And that's okay. I'm allowed to not be fully sold. At pick 43 for the Chicago Bears, I'm going to look at edge rusher here or center. But, you could end up waiting on edge rusher and getting a guy like Mohamed Kamara. You could end up getting Xavier Thomas, Javon Solomon, even Adisa Isaac there in round number 3. Center-wise, you have Zach Frazier here. You could play Christian Haynes as a center. I think Bo Lemmer is great. I personally think you can wait till round 3 for a center, though. I think the drop-off is, there is a drop-off. Looking at the guys who are available, I don't know if Chris Braswell will go as high as people think, but this is the proper range for him to go. We'll go Chris Braswell, edge rusher out of Alabama. So you end up getting Caleb Williams as well as Rome Odunze and now Chris Braswell. Pick 44 for the Vegas Raiders. We ended up getting a corner in round number 1 and Nate Wiggins. We're going to get Michael Penix Jr. here. I don't think I need to explain that too much, but it's a better upgrade over Aiden O'Connell. Pick 45 for the New Orleans Saints. Ended up going after an edge rusher. We went after Brock Bowers, right? Kubiak. Kubiak came on, so it's like, all right, time to get an offensive player for the Saints. Still need to go after safety. Cam Kitchens. Both your veterans have 1 year left, so Cam Kitchens definitely needs that 1 year to develop. Same thing with Kalen Bullock. I do think that this is a good range for them to start going. Other positions, quarterback, we've kind of milked the round 2 quarterbacks. Hate to say it, but it's true. Offensive tackle-wise, though, you could go Patrick Paul. And I think this is a worthy spot where teams might get comfortable taking Patrick Paul and having him in a offensive line battle. So Patrick Paul, left tackle out of Houston. I'm not the highest guy on him, but I still respect him enough. Pick number 46 for the Indianapolis Colts. I fleeced y'all earlier. Apologies about that. But you ended up getting Jared Verse, which, I mean, I'd be pretty damn happy with that, but that's okay. I think that wide receiver still on the radar. You got Jalen Polk here, who I think is a perfect addition. But instead of going those routes, I mean, corner as well, you got some good ones on the board. But I'm actually going to go Christian Haynes. I know it's going to be more of my pick than anything, but Christian Haynes is just a phenomenal prospect with great movement skills. That, to me, winning through the trenches is the best strategy for success. Pick number 47 for the New York Giants. Christian Haynes, again, dream pick for the Giants. Not going to happen in this. Got Xavier Legette and Jaden Daniels. Looking at other picks, I would say edge rusher. You know, that Jalen Polk, you could honestly get 2 wide receivers, but edge rusher still is on the table. I really love the patience of Adisa Isaac, but I'm actually going to go Jonah Ellis here. It's a smaller named prospect, but he is actually much higher on my board than even some of the guys who I've taken earlier. Jonah Ellis is just such a great player. He plays like he's 255, 260, and he's 245 pounds. Dude's just an absolute muscle hamster as well. Love the drive. Father, former first-round pick, brothers in the NFL. It's a dude who you just know is going to stick around. Pick 48 for the Jaguars. Ended up going after Quinton Mitchell in round number 1. Zach Frazier feels very much like a bulky style of interior offensive lineman. To me, that is going to be the route I go because he also can play as a guard. Former wrestling champion as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was like a 4-time wrestling champion too. This dude was, he knows how to use his upper body strength and leverage properly. Pick 49 for the Bengals. Normally go tight end for them in Jatavian Sanders. Probably will do the same here. But I actually really like the idea of going after and training up Leonard Taylor III to being the best version he can be. At pick number 60, At pick number 60, I am going to be looking at a wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles with Ladd McConkey. But, I mean, y'all know how addicted I am to going Edgerrin Cooper into Vic Fangio's system. Like, he is hand in glove the best fit. Like, there's no way the Eagles don't take Edgerrin Cooper at 50. He could be their pick at 22. Probably not. 98% chance not. But there's that 2% chance. Like, he fits Vic Fangio's system hand in glove. A linebacker that's sub 230 or 230 flat, which is literally what he used last year in Miami, who can play on the line. He literally is Andrew Van Ginkel, but way better. This dude's a freak. I mean, I love it. And I'm not even that super high on Edgerrin Cooper as an off-ball linebacker, but he's my linebacker 1 if he's actually able to play on the line of scrimmage as well. This dude's a monster. I'm so excited to see what happens. Pick number 51 for the Los Angeles Rams. Chose, what do we do in round number 1? Now I'm tripping. We went after Leatu Latu. And now we still could go after offensive tackle. We can't, can we? No, you got Dominic Pooney here, who is actually a really versatile interior offensive lineman. Christian Jones as well. Those guys are really solid round 3 targets who will be featured later this week. But I'm actually going to look at defensive back. And Kamari Lassiter, I think he's going to be a little bit infringed upon by Quentin Lake. I think TJ Tampa will be going in this range. And the Rams feel like a TJ Tampa team. I'm not there with TJ Tampa, but I have to show y'all at least some players who are going to be going to really good spots. It's a good fit. Rams go TJ Tampa. Pick number 52 for the Pittsburgh Steelers went JPJ in round number 1. So we got 2 JPJs on the team. Corner, still a very valid position to target. But I'm going to go after linebacker because I just don't like the corner value at this moment. I like Dwight McLaughlin, but that's pretty much it for the Steelers. I'm going to go Junior Colson, though, because we just haven't had a really good linebacker since Ryan Shazier. And we've had some guys who are stopgap guys. I think Junior Colson is my linebacker one. He's the only true Mike linebacker in this class at 6'3", 250 pounds. There's nobody else who has that build. And Junior Colson was an absolute beast this year. So maybe even later on, 5th round, we can end up getting Michael Barrett, who's going to be like 25 years old, who was Junior Colson's running mate there at Michigan. Pick 53 for the Dolphins. I know y'all are happy about this one. We're going to Jatavian Sanders. We went after a nose tackle in round 1. Yes, what about the interior, the offensive line? This interior class is actually really deep. So even though you forfeited that 3rd round pick, there's going to be legitimate starters there in round number 2. I would not fret too much. Jatavian Sanders is great value for a system that actually can use him properly. Pick 54 for the Eagles. It's Ladd McConkey. Met with him twice at the Senior Bowl. This team's looking for a wide receiver 3, especially one with deep threat abilities. This guy's a beast. He probably should go sooner. But, the Eagles will continue to prosper. They're going to do what they're going to do. Pick 55 for the Browns. I usually go Tez Walker for this team because I think that's a great pick. But instead, my boy Jalen Polk is available. DPJ traded to the Browns. Big gap there, in my opinion, at that wide receiver 2 spot. Jalen Polk would fit that to a T, 6'2", 204 pounds, and someone who I've taken even as high as 34. Pick 56 for the Cowboys. Took Tyler Guyton in round number 1. I think this team still could be looking actually at somebody who could be a slot in Kamari Lassiter. And I think that Kamari is he 6 foot? He might be like 5'11". He's 6 foot. I think he has the right height for a Mike Zimmer slot corner. And I really like that. Really like that. So Kamari Lassiter will be that dangerous pick. It's best player available. And I don't know if Stephon Gilmore really has a place with Deron Bland and Trevon Diggs having their respective outside roles. I think Kamari could be that young, exciting, fast twitch, very smart, still needing a little bit of refinement slot corner that you're really looking for. He's closer to being a genuine starter than Mike Sainristil, so that's probably the reason why I'd go after Kamari. Pick 57 for the Green Bay Packers. We've gone after offensive linemen as well as defensive back. I actually might go Cam Kinchens here and just say, maybe Keyshawn Nixon's the one to get kicked to the curb, or we can even test out Cooper DeJean as a boundary corner. People who say that he can't do both, all right, you do you. Charles Woodson, great example of somebody who is super versatile and can transition throughout his career, but let's just not bring that up. We're going to go Cam Kinchens here. Pick number 58 for the Buccaneers. We went after, I wish we went after an edge rusher for them deep down, but we went after interior offensive line, which is still a very solid position to go. Looking at the edge rushers available, it is a little bit light for my liking. I really want to, sometimes I just want to tell myself to go with the position that would not be here. But I also know that wide receiver is a very valuable position that does have some solid value at this point. Linebacker, you still have some really good dudes on the board, but none of them that are really properly worth this spot. There are running backs. I know the running backs have to go eventually. So this is a team that could be looking for that Trey Benson, keep him in Florida type vibe. There's a lot of positions you can go. You could actually look at a center right here as well with like Cedric Van Pran or Bo Limmer. But at that point, you're really pushing it as well. It's a tough spot to be. It's another spot where I would suggest trade out if possible. But if you can't, Adisa Isaac is the best bet that you have. He's a high IQ edge rusher that is going to be a little bit less flashy than the ones you've drafted in the past. But sometimes getting consistency is a little bit more important than just getting the flash. Pick number 59 for the Houston Texans. We ended up drafting Jerzon Newton in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I actually think Ricky Pearsall might be the best choice. I mean, this dude has good size to him, 6'1", 192. I think he would complement actually really well, especially with jump catch ability, with Tank Dell and Nico Collins kind of being that hybrid between the two. He's going to be someone who probably goes in round number 2. So it's going to be someone who I'm going to throw as a dark horse pick. And I don't think the Texans are too afraid of being original. So they're going to be going after their guy. I've seen him go as high as like pick 35. So This is within the respective range. Pick 60 for the Buffalo Bills. We already went wide receiver 2 for them. At this point, I'm actually going to look at Kalen Bullock, my true safety number 1, but needs a bit more development, 6'3", 190. And this is the perfect spot for him to go because there's going to be some big vacancies there in that secondary. Pick 61 for the Detroit Lions. We went after Chopper Robinson, round number 1. Here in round number 2, interior offensive line, probably paramount. Also going after corner, pretty paramount. So I've already taken Cam Hart to this team before. I think that's a very dark horse position to go, even though, again, I just said it again. Take a shot every time I say that. You're going to be absolutely slammed every time you watch a video of mine. I'm actually going to go Dwight McGlothern. I'll put my twist on it. Some teams just really fall in love with the player. I fell in love with Dwight McGlothern from the beginning, and I'm just going to continue sticking to my guns. Pick 62 for the Baltimore Ravens. We went after a wide receiver in round 1 in Troy Franklin. Here in round 2 could be the first moment where they end up going after a star defensive piece. But let's see what happens. Let's see. Running back could be their move. Again, running backs have to come off the board eventually. It's a solid running back class. It's just not flashy in any way. Like Trey Benson's properly valued. Jonathan Brooks, a good one as well. Like defensive line wise, you could go Braden Fiske. Wouldn't be a bad idea. Could go Ruka Rojo, just kind of like irritate the hell out of the rest of the division. But I think this is a team that would actually really like Cam Hart. Cam Hart feels like he has the aggressiveness of a Baltimore Ravens. So we will go and address it with Cam Hart. At pick 63 for the Niners, another spot where I kind of wished I did not take Cam Hart. We ended up taking Karan Amajaje in round number 1. Here in round number 2, we might get a more versatile piece in Dominic Pooney, who's going to be interior offensive line, not a tackle. And that might provide a little bit more bang for your buck, so to speak. But looking at the other options available, Andrew Phillips is actually another guy who could be a little bit under the radar. People don't know too much about him. He's a very good player. Could look at the tight end group, but this class is just not good for tight ends. Offensive line, that's a position I really want to go. You could go for a developmental defensive interior or even an edge rusher. I could see Marshawn Nealon being a sneaky choice for them to go and replace Chase Young. I think Chase Young will stay, but I'm going to test the theory out. If Chase Young doesn't stay, Marshawn Nealon at a very similar height to weight ratio and explosiveness will actually bring a similar impact there for the Niners. And at pick 64 and ending off the draft, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think need to complement Chris Jones pretty damn well. And that's going to be Rook Ororo here out of Clemson, 295 of pure muscle and grit. So that's going to be the draft. Thank you so much for watching and showing the love that you always do. See you on the far side.